Hey guys, Jason here with another video. Today I'm doing a really fun techie thing, giving my friend Bryan's guitar pedal board a total makeover. Thanks for watching. So Bryan's the lead singer and creative force behind the band Companion, a really cool band here in Winston-Salem that I get to be friends with. So occasionally I help the band out with techie, nerdy stuff that I tend to be good at. I help them build a mobile monitor rack. Actually, I think I'm going to do a video on that later. So I was talking to Bryan about trouble he was having with his pedal board. It was a little glitchy. He'd lose connection sometimes. It just wasn't very sturdy. It wasn't built for travel. So Bryan loaned me his board. I assessed all the issues and laid out a plan for a new build. First, I needed to go shopping for some supplies, so I grabbed my partner in crime and we hit up our local neighborhood guitar center. After playing some drums, we picked up a few odds and ends, and I got Bryan a new volume pedal to replace his old one that was basically non-functioning at this point. I got Bryan one of the Dunlop Volume X pedals. I love these things. I use them on my board. They have a really smooth, consistent feel. They're built like little tanks, and they don't use a string on the inside, so they're less prone to breaking. Then we stopped by Lowe's and picked up some painter's tape and some heavy-duty mounting tape. Penelope was obviously very helpful. Then it was time to disassemble the pedal board. I'm going to end up reusing most of these cables. I'm also pulling up the old Velcro on the board because a lot of it was pretty worn out. Also because we're doing a really cool modification to this board inspired by Mason at Vertex Effects on his YouTube channel, The Rig Doctor. I'm going to be mounting a slab of 3/16" plywood that I had lying around to the top surface of the board. This will give us more options to where to place the pedals than you get on the standard slotted surface on a pedal train pedal board. And I'm going to drill a couple of holes through the wood to feed power cables through from the underside of the board. Right here, I'm just taping it down so it doesn't slide around as I trace out where I'm going to cut. Took the sheet of wood outside and using a borrowed circular saw, I cut it down to the proper dimensions. Now I'm going to place the pedals on the board just to double check my planned layout and to figure out where I'm going to drill my holes. I like taping off the edges of the board just to give a little buffer for the end plugs that are going in and out of the pedals, and also just to inset the pedals a little bit to reduce risk of things getting kicked accidentally. So I've got my pedals laid out where they're going to be on the final board, and I mark 2 spots where I'm going to drill holes for the power cables. Then it's time to spray paint the board with some matte black paint I had. I sanded down the corners and the edges of the board, painted it, and then gave it another light sanding. I checked the wood to make sure it sits flush with the board, then give it one more quick sanding and a very light coat of paint on top. While that's drying, I have a couple of quick repairs to do. First up, the chorus pedal has a Temple Boards mounting plate on the back. This must have been from the previous owner that Bryan just never bothered to take off, which is fair. They can be a little tricky, but all you need is an X-Acto knife and to just slowly work your way around all 4 sides until it starts to peel off. It does leave residue, but a really easy fix is to get some lemon oil and let it soak in for a few minutes. Then it should scrape off pretty easily. His Strymon Timeline delay pedal had a loose foot switch. Normally this would be as simple as tightening the nut, but tightening it down actually raised the foot switch a little bit higher, so I needed to open it up and adjust the nut on the inside of the casing. The Strymon and a couple of other pedals also had some adhesive residue on them, so I hit those with a little bit of lemon oil as well. Then it was time to put mounting tape on the pedal board. I'm just using little small strips of tape placed evenly across the board. With stuff like this, you find you don't actually need that much. As long as it's making even contact across the whole surface, a little really does go a long way. I like this tape because it's very strong and it's extremely thin, so it's going to barely raise the height of the board at all. I went back and added 4 more pieces because I started to get a little paranoid that it was going to cave in a little over time in those spots. Then I peel off the backing of the tape and very carefully place the wood on the pedal board, making sure the sides and the corners line up, and voila, we have a brand new pedal board surface. I tape off the edges again. I left one side not taped because I know that there either won't be any plugs or this will be where the output cable plugs into. I made 2 little blocks out of leftover wood trim, sanded and spray painted them, added Velcro, and I'm going to mount them to the board to act as a riser for the chorus pedal since it's on the 2nd row. The main thing to think about with this is just making sure one of the blocks is directly under the foot switch of the pedal because that's where it's going to need the most support. Then I start populating the board, adding new Velcro. Again, same as the mounting tape, you don't need that much Velcro. I see some people cover the entire underside of a pedal with Velcro. It doesn't really add much to the security of the connection. all it really does is make it harder to pull up the pedal later on. Seriously, too much Velcro and you're gonna need a freaking crowbar. As long as you're covering your corners and there's even contact across the surface, that should be enough. For the volume pedal, along with the new Boss tuner he's going to use, it has a rubber foot on the bottom that is a huge pain to pull off. Plus, it could be useful for a later application. So an easy trick is just to flip the bottom plate inside out so it has a nice clean surface for you to put your Velcro on. So as you can see, I'm placing both sides of the Velcro on the back of the pedal, then peeling off the plastic right before I place the pedal where I want it on the board. Now we have a fully populated pedal board. Time for cables. You see, one of the first things I did was laid out anchors for my zip ties, thinking in terms of a signal flow, not just audio from pedal to pedal, but also power from all of the pedals flowing back to the power supply. I mostly reused the patch cables that were already on the board. I had to cut down and resolder a couple of them to be the appropriate length. I had to make one MIDI cable to connect the timeline to the DMC controller, so I soldered those up real quick. Then it was time to connect all the power. I had all the cables running from the pedals down to the power supply underneath, and I went ahead and labeled where everything was getting plugged into to make sure I didn't get confused. So the tricky thing here is that there are just enough outputs, one for each pedal, but the timeline needs more power than one output can provide. So I'm combining two outputs to power the timeline and then having two pedals share power off of one output. This works out nicely because some of the outputs can be switched from 9 volts to 12 volts, and the compressor and the light speed can take higher voltages, so they're perfect candidates to share power. So I cut all the cables to length to get rid of excess and resoldered new plugs on the ends. The plugs that have two cables running into them didn't fit into the plastic housing that comes with them, so I just put heat shrink over those. Then after everything was thoroughly tested, it was time for the last step, which was zip tying down all of the cables. With everything securely tied down, it severely increases the toughness and reliability of this board in travel. It's just a couple of minutes shy of midnight and the board is officially finished. It remains to be seen if it actually sounds good, but I know for a fact that audio successfully passes through the board. So quick rundown. Alright, first thing the guitar plugs into is the tuner. Then from the tuner into the compressor, SP compressor, it's running at 12 volts, so it gives a little extra headroom and it compresses. There we go down into the Bondi Effects Sick As drive, right into the Greer Amps Little Samson distortion pedal. And then out of the Greer drive into the Mr. Black double chorus. And this is the pedal that's on the two little blocks of wood to elevate a little bit, so it's easier to step on that foot switch up on the second row. And out of the chorus pedal into the new volume pedal, the Dunlop volume. Then from the volume pedal into the timeline delay for all delay and echo stuff. And the timeline is being MIDI controlled by the Disaster Area Designs DMC Micro. And basically it's just his set list pedal, so he can create a set list in preset mode, so all he has to do is hit next and he doesn't have to jump through a whole bunch of banks to get to his next sound. He just has to click on the right button one time and he's on his next delay patch. Then out of the timeline into the New Neighbor Immerse Reverb, and then out of the reverb pedal to the amp. And it's back into the road case to give back to Bryan tomorrow.
Alright. You want me to open it?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do it. Let's see what we got here. Oh, snap. What is this? Is this... Oh, you put like a board on top of it?
Yeah.
My dog. We got rid of that red tuner.
Red tuner's gone.
This is so clean.
It's
and so cool looking.
It's been upgraded.
Oh yeah, look at that. Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
This is amazing.
So there it is. Bryan's got a fresh, clean pedal board that he can take to rehearsals and gigs and feel confident it's going to work right every time he fires it up. This was a really fun project to work on, and I'm glad I got to share the process with you guys. Go check out Companion on your preferred streaming platform, and here on YouTube. They're a great band and they deserve your support. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I have more on the way, providing practical insight for the everyday musician. Until then, I'm Jason. Thanks for watching.